Hello everyone and welcome to my video showing off how I made my puppet here out of fleece, felt, and just a few other items that you can find at your Dollar General, Family Dollar, or Amazon.com. His name is Iggy Iguana, and he was made for my other channel, Neon Iguana, where he has his very appropriately titled show, The Iggy Iguana Show, and you can check out that show by checking out the links in the description below. So now that the introductions are all out of the way, let's go ahead and start making this puppet, shall we? The first thing that I did was just sketch out a very rough arch shape onto a piece of cereal box cardboard. I wanted it to be at least a little bit wider than my hand because this would eventually be the top skull portion of my puppet. I then cut out the shape and then just cut some slits into the side of that cutout shape. From there, I just applied some stick glue to the cutout flaps on the sides of my shape and bent it into a shovel shape. I then helped anchor in that shape just using some regular household Scotch tape. From there, I just went ahead and repeated that entire process for the lower portion of the skull. From there, I thought I should just go ahead and elongate the back part of the top skull, so I cut out some additional pieces of cardboard and just glued them in using a hot glue gun. Next up, I just cut out a shape that will be the inner part of the mouth, attaching to both the top and bottom portions of the skull. Here I am gluing in the mouth shape to the top portion of the skull, and as you can see here, with the bottom portion attached, the framework of the skull is pretty much finished. Next up, I cut out a generous portion of fleece fabric to lay over the top portion of my puppet skull. I then went ahead and applied a liberal amount of white school glue to the top portion of my puppet skull, spreading it evenly. I then went ahead and laid the cutout piece of fleece over the glue, making sure the majority of the excess was near the back part of the skull. After the glue had dried, I went ahead and started trimming the fleece around the mouth portion, leaving any of the remaining fleece around the back intact. I then just went ahead and repeated that process for the bottom portion of the skull. After the glue is all dried, it looks to be shaping up quite well, and I think my kitty cat agrees. I then began working on the arms for my puppet, just rolling up nice large portions of felt and hot gluing them into place. There they are, looking like a couple of very large taquitos. Next on the agenda were hands, and I just used a cardboard stencil in order to glue several different pieces of felt together for thickness. I then went ahead and cut out some portions of fleece for my arms and went ahead and glued them on using some white school glue. I then went ahead and just did the same thing with the hands. And next up was just hot gluing the hands to the arm pieces. Moving back now to the head, I went ahead and started sewing the back portions of the fleece together, making sure to leave an open hole for your hand. I then went ahead and cut out some orange pieces of felt to use as the spikes on the top of my puppet's head. Next up, I cut out 2 pieces of fleece fabric for the body of my puppet. Notice that it's large enough for my hand to get into and also tapers so that it can sew easily to the head portion of my puppet. Next up is just sewing the sides up of the body pieces of fabric. And next, all that you have to do is sew the head onto the arm piece. You can't see the head here because it's stuffed inside of the body, but that's just to ensure that you have a nice and invisible seam. After that, I just glued in a black piece of felt into the mouth, and after that, my puppet is very close to being done. Moving on now to the finishing touches, I just went ahead and sewed on some glasses to my puppet, as well as the spikes for the top of its head. And next, I just went ahead and glued on his arms a little bit underneath his head. And last but certainly not least is the icing on the cake for this puppet, a leather jacket that I bought from FAO Schwarz via Amazon, and I really think it makes this puppet look quite cool. And that pretty much does it, folks, for my very first puppet. And yes, I am very pleased with the results. And if you would like to see Iggy here in action, make sure you check out the Iggy Iguana show on Neon Iguana, located right here on YouTube. Just keep in mind, though, that it is rather rude, crude, and intended for a more mature audience. Make sure that you check out the link in the description below to check out the Iggy Iguana show. And that pretty much does it for my very first puppet build video. And if you would like to see more, make sure that you subscribe to Dragon's Den Designs. I do all sorts of stuff here, including the painting of miniatures, live painting, and just generally all sorts of other craft-related stuff. So with that being said, thank you all very much for watching, and I hopefully will see you next time.